They really
Those are
but
like-
we used to make some good things.
Like the little,
Yeah. We used to cocktail it up. We mix it with, have you ever had those Jones sodas? They're like
Jones soda?
specialty sodas, so there's all these different flavors. Our favorite is the grape, so we mix the 5 Hour Energy with grape.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's special city council meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Baena is excused. Councilperson Kazarian.
Present.
Councilperson Lavasa.
Present.
Councilperson Figueroa. Present. Councilperson Solano.
Present.
Councilperson Rosado Martinez.
Present.
And Councilperson Ferry.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Will all please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda, under item 3 is public comment. We have none. Next item on the agenda, under number 4, approval of records, meeting minutes from May 13, 2024 special council meeting, and meeting minutes from May 13, 2024 council meeting.
Has everyone reviewed the meeting minutes of the meetings? May 13th? Everyone satisfied? Is there a motion to approve collectively? Motion by Albert. Second by Raphael to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda under new business is discussion with department directors regarding fiscal year 25 proposed budget. First off is Mayor's office.
Good evening.
Good evening, Jim.
Good to see everybody. Thought it was appropriate that I kick off the next 3 meetings of directors and department presentations. We have 4 tonight, myself included, 3 next Wednesday and 3 the following Wednesday. There are a couple of notes I want to make about the department that I oversee day to day on behalf of the mayor, that being the mayor's office. The biggest responsibility that I have in my capacity as chief of staff is ensuring that the city government as a whole stays focused on executing the mayor's 4 biggest areas of focus, right? The first of that being housing. So as the mayor walked through in her budget address last Monday, she made a pledge at the beginning of her time in office that over the course of her tenure, she was going to bring about 200 new units of housing in the city over the course of her tenure. And as we listed out in the mayor's budget address, we are well on track to be able to do that between the Washington and Hood development to the Broad Street Homes across the street, which will be groundbreaking in the coming months, to the School Street proposal. When we start to add up where we are, and we've got a tracker in my office that I keep very close eye on, we are on pace to meet what is a very, very bold promise on behalf of the mayor. The second thing that's very important to the mayor, and I know came through in her budget address, is the focus on education in the city, right? And as the mayor's chief of staff, this is something that I'm constantly involved in every day. I think everybody was there for the opening of the new groundbreaking for the new $108 million high school that the mayor was instrumental in advocating for, and that we look forward to opening to new Central Falls High School students come October 2026. I would also point you towards El Centro, which is the other sort of core pillar of the mayor's agenda that I'm focused on day in and day out. We've raised $7.5 million in outside funds for this project, with construction slated to start this year. And all three of these three project areas are also supported by and underscored by the mayor's focus on quality of life. The budget that the mayor presented to you last week is a quality of life budget, right? And there are these big pillars of quality of life in the city: our education, and where people are living, and the ability to go to a community center. But quality of life is also about the little things, right? About a responsive government. And the budget that you have before you to consider in its entirety funds quality of life improvements that are really tangible to people in the city, right? As the mayor outlined last week, that is everything from implementing an e-payment system through City Hall, so that when you show up for your birth certificate for vital records in the clerk's office, that you don't need to have a check or have cash, that you can pay how we pay for everything else in our lives, right? It's also simple things like returning bike patrols to the city, right? This was something that used to be funded through the state, funding dried up, but it's important how people experience the police department as accessible and easy to interact with representatives of law enforcement. And we know that people enjoyed when the Central Falls Police Department were out on their bikes during the summer. This month's budget from the mayor returns that as a quality of life investment. It's also things like traffic calming measures, in large part removable speed bumps, right? This budget funds, through the DPW department, our ability to purchase more speed bumps, right? And then make a application system for residents of the city to be able to request a traffic study, because we can't put speed bumps in without public safety weighing in. But these are the types of really tangible things that relate to quality of life for residents of this city. And the mayor's focused on the big things, how we're educating our kids, where people live in safe and affordable housing, but it's also the small day-to-day things. And so it's my job, in large part as chief of staff, to be constantly monitoring and pushing and make sure we're making progress against those goals of the mayor. How do I do this? The mayor has asked me as chief of staff to, in large part, also be a chief operating officer for the city, to make sure that we're making progress against these very important goals. And in this capacity, as the coordinator and the chief operating officer, and within the constraints of our budget, I try to maintain a focus on all of these projects and sort of a sense of executional excellence as we approach these things. I do this by coordinating between or directly managing myself, the 10 department heads, as well as 5 additional senior staff members on behalf of the mayor. An example of that, for instance, would be our communications director or the mayor's chief of education strategy, who themselves are not department directors, but are members of the senior staff. And the final thing that I focus on closely as chief of staff is being the mayor's liaison to council. Since I started, I had my 1-year anniversary with the city last week, so I made it a full year. Since I've started, I've made sure to set up regular meetings with the council, splitting the council into 3 and 3. We have monthly meetings, and I appreciate that as an opportunity to venue for feedback, to make sure that we are hearing from you, and that we are executing against any things that you bring up that you want the administration to be focusing on. And I think that's a very important piece of what I am doing day to day as chief of staff and out of the mayor's office. With all of that said, I do humbly believe that for less than 2% of the overall operating budget, that the city gets its money worth out of the mayor's office. And with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, both big picture or specifically about the mayor's office budget.
Council President, before you begin the line of questioning, I have a series of questions here entered by Councilperson Bayetta that she'd like to enter into public record without a question.
No objection here, any objection, by councilman? And I assume collectively?
And I spoke with Councilwoman Diana earlier today. And so she let me know a couple of these questions. Some of which I said when she is back on Wednesday, I would be able to answer for her. I figure it was best to be able to put it in the record and then come back to her Wednesday at the next meeting with those while she's here.
No objection. So accepted, on record. Thank you. Anyone, any questions of chief of staff?
Okay, Chief, thank you for your presentation, and also thank you for the budget, which I believe is a well-balanced budget. But we are very pleased to see that groundbreaking the other day at school, and also groundbreaking a couple of places in the budget are coming out, which is good. Talking about house probably is not the budget itself, but some concern that I have about that. The budget, the 200 houses that are going to be in the city, which is great. But we're talking about affordable housing, and that's something that I have the concern about that the other day, and I would like to know, how that's going to happen, that the residents of Central Falls will going to be able to afford those new houses and then stay in the city.
So a couple of things I'd say. The mayor's pledge at the beginning of her term was 200 new units, right? So it wasn't 200 new affordable units, right? The mayor believes it's very important to have a mix of market rate and affordable housing. And when you think about the development that's being facilitated by the city, a large chunk of that, I don't have the exact numbers, but about half of it is market rate, right? Those would be the Roosevelt Mills, down on Cross Street, and I believe that's close to maybe 75 units in and of itself. So it's not exclusively affordable. So then your question is for the affordable, right? How are we raising money for these things? And this is something the mayor touched on in her budget address. One thing before I came into my role that the mayor worked through the General Assembly to advocate for was what's called site acquisition funding, coming from the state to help purchase certain lots, et cetera. That is how we got access and raised the funds to buy the Dunkin' Donuts. So that doesn't come from the city budget, right? That's an externally raised funding source, right? The city's is not itself assuming significant budgetary impacts, and the ones that we have absorbed are being done through not the general fund, but through ARPA, right? Which is best from a budgetary standpoint used for one-time investments. And so if you'll recall, Councilwoman Bayena requested in one of our monthly meetings, I believe in January, for us to come and do a report out of the ARPA schedule and how we were planning to spend the approximately $5 million that the city had received from the federal government. One of the biggest allocations within ARPA, I believe it was $1.7 million, is slated towards affordable housing. And basically facilitating that as a revolving fund where we continue to invest in opportunities when things come along for us to be able to facilitate the creation of these projects. But that doesn't hit the operating budget.
So I got another question for you.
Yeah.
Which is in curious because it's not in the budget. The budget is already here, but nothing in this budget is talking about the white detention facility and what we are receiving. I mean, we've been waiting for such a long time and we don't see anything happening here either. Will you please?
Matt, to what degree can I considering there's ongoing litigation with the Wyatt, and discuss.
Any
We
other
still,
questions?
I mean, we still discussing that and,
The question is about the Wyatt, and he's, the councilman is asking about basically the status of different, he's basically saying, why is there nothing reflected in the budget?
that's why I asked, it's nothing reflected in here, so.
We haven't had anything in the city budget since Wyatt filed a lawsuit against the city in April of 2019.
Mhm.
So the matter is currently in mediation, and at this point, I can't discuss it any further.
Got it, okay.
Believe me, I would love,
Yeah.
and we are working hard to bring that to
So it's been
reality.
ongoing 5 years.
Correct. Anyone else? Any questions of the mayor's office? Represented by RJ.
Wonderful.
So I want to thank you again for the job and the effort that you are doing to put everything together and make the thing happen. So, thank you.
I appreciate that, and I do truly appreciate the opportunity to work with council.
Thank you, RJ. Enjoy your evening.
I'm not leaving, I'm here for the evening. This is where all the fun happens, Council President.
The next item on the discussion of department directors regarding fiscal year 25 proposed budget is item 2, human resources.
Good evening,
Good
council.
Hi.
Hi, thank you for being here. The HR department budget is relatively short. I'm just gonna go over the line items briefly and then talk to you a little bit about our goals and objectives, and our progress in them. So, the first line item that you see in the HR budget is the salary line item. That line item is composed of the deputy director's salary. She's the only employee in the department.
That's good, thank you.
That's better.
Thank you.
I'm a little taller than Anna.
Yeah, you should say hello for now.
Yeah, I should have.
The social security line item is composed of the city's obligation to the state, of 6.2% of the wages earned by our employees. The Medicare line item is composed of the city's share of Medicare payments. The municipal state pension and TIA PrEP line items represent the city's contribution to employee pensions and retirement plans. If you're looking for it, it's on page 13, the bottom of page 13. The medical and dental insurance line items represent the city's share of health coverage for our employees. And it has been calculated based off of the rates that we received from the trust for this upcoming year. The other professional services line item is where my salary is reflected. As you may know, I am a contractor with the city. The education and training line item funds professional development for HR staff. We reduced it significantly this year because we already completed a lot of the professional development that we had set out to participate in, and we don't anticipate using too much of that fund for this upcoming year in professional development. There's only 2 of us in the department. The next line item is the recruitment line item, and it represents the funds that we use to recruit for public safety. We increased it last year. We had plans to get a promotional video for public safety recruitment, which we were able to do, and to get new materials to be present at different hiring events. So since we were able to get those done, we reduced that line item significantly for this upcoming year as well. The employee events team building line item represents funds for retreats for directors and senior staff. This past year, we had a retreat, that included professional development and diversity, equity, and inclusion for our directors and senior staff, and we plan to organize at least 2 retreats per year. So that's what those funds are gonna be used for. Then the workers' comp line item is composed of the city's, workers' comp liabilities. The employee relations line item, funds employee events such as, the holiday party. And it provides support to the Parks and Rec Department, for their ongoing events throughout the year. And lastly, the testing line item, is for testing for public safety personnel. The applicants, when they, want to be considered for a position in our police or fire department, as well as the current public safety employees, who are seeking promotion, so promotional testing. And that's my first. We accomplished a lot of the goals that we set for ourselves last year, which were to update the employee handbook to include all the policies currently being implemented. We revamped the public safety recruitment process by modernizing it, and we're now on police app, which we were not before. It has streamlined that process. Successful continuation of bonus programs and increasing the participation in the healthy challenges. That is thanks to Lisa, who has done an amazing job with those efforts. Identifying new training opportunities for employees, providing support to all departments for compliance with state and federal laws and policies, continuously updating new hire documentations and forms, and continuing to organize all historical department records for the purpose of complying with the records retention schedule and digitizing all records. We're slowly trying to scan in all of the records that we don't need in paper form. It's a huge task, but we're chipping at it little bit. We have a few new goals this year, which are to provide opportunities for residents to engage with the Human Resources Department and learn about current vacancies during the extended hours at City Hall. This goal really speaks to the mayor's objective of improving quality of life for our residents, just increasing that accessibility and visibility for our employees in the case that they're not able to come during regular business hours to find out about our vacancies. Devise and implement cybersecurity training and emergency incident evacuation plans for each government building. HR is working closely with the city clerk's office, who's really done an amazing job of organizing that for us. We just had a fire drill last week. Was it successful? Or was
Yes, it was.
Successful fire drill last week.
In the rain, then.
In the rain. And also, a new goal would be to encourage department directors to routinely conduct performance evaluations on our staff. That could get a little bit complicated just because of our relationships with the different unions, but we're trying to get our directors to give feedback, provide feedback, whether positive or negative, to their employees. And that pretty much covers it. Lastly, I want to say that the day-to-day operations would not be as smooth as they are if it were not for Lisa. So even though it's me standing up here, it's really a team effort, and she takes on a lot of it.
Thank you. So rapid, human resources basically is 2 people, 1 contracted and 1 non-contracted.
Correct.
Doing a good job. 2 people doing a great job.
Thank you.
Right, any further questions? Any questions?
No, you're great. It was a great job. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much.
So yes, like you say, when you say the third line item is the salaries, and the dues and subscription, I think, go back to all the professional services. That's where your salary is reflected.
Yes.
So there's 2 of you. So who's the one is in contract?
Contracted.
Okay.
Lisa said.
I agree that you are doing a good job too. I think it's a good team working in the city and helping the mayor to accomplish the plan that she have for the city, so thank you.
You are free to go.
Thank you.
Lisa, you're free.
Next item on the agenda, under discussion of department director regarding fiscal year 25 proposed budget is city clerk's office.
No, Alberto, go in.
Good evening, members of the city council. The office of the city clerk serves as a central hub of information activity in Seneca Falls. We efficiently manage a high volume of visitors and transactions. Our primary responsibilities encompass recording deeds and land records, issuing vital records such as birth, marriage, and death certificates, and managing marriage licenses. We ensure accurate documentation of city council meetings, oversee procurement policies, and serve as a clerk of the purchasing board. Additionally, we manage property expenses, handle claims without an interlocal trust, maintain board registration, and conduct elections, and manage guardianship, name changes, and state administration and code report. Furthermore, we coordinate IT services and cybersecurity efforts and provide various licensed notary services. Aligned with the mayor's recent budget address and her initiative to make Central Falls more customer friendly, we have outlined several strategic goals for fiscal year 25. We aim to restore and maintain City Hall structures, maintain security measures, supporting businesses with welcome packages. We plan to enhance service accessibility through e-recording options for land records and maintain procurement excellence. Our objectives include implementing credit card payments options for city departments to offer residents as additional payment methods, coordinate IT services and cybersecurity programs, increase subscriptions to the city YouTube channel, modernize the audio-visual system here in council chambers, it's kind of outdated, and continue cybersecurity assessments. We are dedicated to boosting voter engagement in local elections and ensuring successful conduct of the 2024 primary and general elections. If you have any questions, I will get to them.
Hearing none, seeing none, keep up the good work, you know what you do, and,
You guys made it easy for me, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Where you going? Oh, I got a cash flow. First of all, thank you, Alberto. You were very hard and diligent to do a lot of things in the city, with the people that come and with us and everybody else.
I think one important thing to know is that city clerk, when I say it's the center hub, it's because we actually deal with every department in the city.
I know.
So we kind of touch on everything, as Anna mentioned, even with HR, with some of the things that they're doing, so. Yes.
thank you again, thank your entire staff, they work hard. Thank you, anyone an easy job.
I always feel comfortable going there, and he comes out from himself, hey, how are you? So that makes the community feel safe and
that
feel
is our
comfortable
goal.
going there and ask any question.
And that is always our goal. We are representing the mayor and we're representing the administration, so we have to always put our best foot forward.
It's good to have seen you grow in that department.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? I know Mr. Solano was flipping through the
He
books.
was highlighting, but maybe he's got nothing.
No, actually, I do have a question.
Sorry.
On the, because the board of ambassadors, what's separate with your budget, right?
I'm sorry?
The board of ambassadors.
The board of canvassers, yes, it's separate from the city clerks. The board of canvassers has its own budget.
So you got separate budget for that,
Yes,
and you got aside 45,000 for that?
correct, because
Because of election time.
the election's coming up, we're projecting it to be a very big election.
Yeah.
So we're just making sure that we have enough money in the budget to cover that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda under discussion with department directors regarding fiscal year 25 proposed budget is the city solicitor.
Mr. President, members of the council, good evening. The law department is charged with various functions, both under the charter and the code of ordinances. The first is prosecution, so prosecution entails criminal prosecution of all misdemeanors that happen in the city in the 6th District Court in Providence every Tuesday morning. Those range from disorderly conduct to instances of domestic violence. We also prosecute in the municipal court for violations of the statewide minimum property code. And that historically has been once a month, but recently we moved that to twice a month because we have been engaged in unprecedented prosecution of lead poisoning violations. And we're trying to get through the entirety of the city before our grant runs out. So we are now prosecuting twice a month in housing court. The second big way in which we defend the city's legal interests is representing the city's interests in litigation. So, as Councilman Solano pointed out previously, and Councilman Lavasser, we are now in year 5 of the $138 million wide litigation or mediation regarding that. We also have taken the initiative and been a part of lawsuits that have sued other people, including the various entities that were part of the opioid epidemic. So as a part of that, we brought in over $100,000 in proceeds to the city in the settlements of those class action lawsuits. In addition, we are involved in litigation with the planning board, the zoning board, and the redevelopment agency. You may have read in the Valley Capri's recently that the city zoning board declined to give Broadway Auto Repair and Transmission their request to make gun parts and guns at their establishment. And they sued the city. We went to Superior Court and we won. They're now going to appeal that to the Supreme Court. We also, you probably remember, were defending the city against Western Oil. Western Oil was trying to expand from 3 oil tanks to 12, add 9 new ones. We beat them in round 1, and then this past year we beat them in round 2. Hopefully that'll go away, but that's the second big issue is litigation. Third is regarding the finance department and all issues relating to taxes. So that's namely the tax sale. We work with the finance department every year for people who have 2 consecutive years of not paying their taxes. We work with the finance department to put their property up for tax sale and or work with the process to do that. Next, we work on drafting, review, editing, and enforcement of all city contracts. And so we have a process by which all contracts in the city have to go through. They have to be reviewed to ensure they're in the proper form by myself. I have to sign off, then it goes to Mary Signer, the Director of Finance. She has to review if there's a fiscal impact. The department director has to write a memo. And then one of the changes we've made is that all contracts are now scanned and uploaded into a digital server. So we have both a paper copy and a digital copy so that future city councils and future mayors know where to find any legal commitments that the city has made. And then finally, we do have a number of task forces that we direct. So the first is the nuisance task force, which many of you are familiar with, which we target boarded up property, vacant property, nuisance property, and bring departments together and make a plan to bring them back into useful life so that, as the saying goes, the bad apple doesn't ruin the bunch. So if you have a house on the street, it's a party house or a drug house or a boarded up house, you try to figure out ways to make that house part of the neighborhood again. And I think probably, if you were at, I think the biggest success probably has been 63 Fletcher Street, where there was a pretty notorious house on that street, and the community came together and demolished the property and then built a duplex. So there was a homeowner on the property using the apartment above to help pay the mortgage. Another example is that many of you are familiar with is the community garden next to the high school that was put up for foreclosure several years ago, and the city stepped in to prevent the foreclosure and worked with the high school and to build a new garden park there as well. I would say that between that work and then we started a second version of the Domestic Violence Task Force, which works with our police department and the Blackstone Valley Advocacy Center to do two really critical things. One, how can we do a better job of prosecuting in district court to ensure victims will come forward and help cooperate? And then also, how do we talk to the community about both students, young people, as well as victims in the larger community? Through our churches, through our community groups, through our small businesses, what are the dangers of domestic violence? And you see something, you should say something. How do you say something? And what are the consequences of saying something? Or what are the good consequences of speaking up and defending people? And then I would just add that for the last couple of years, the law department has also been really involved with school building construction. The mayor appointed me to serve on the school building committee and have been working in weekly meetings with the school department to ensure this new high school comes online. And across the board, all school buildings are kept warm, safe, and dry. We've created a revolving fund with your cooperation that we're hoping to address playgrounds. I'm sure you've seen the blacktop at Ella Risk. Hopefully that'll change soon, and Raices and a couple other playgrounds. And then also, as RJ mentioned earlier, housing. And so whether it's the Dunkin' Donuts site, the old police station, the properties on Lonsdale, the law department continues to identify properties that we can put into receivership, partner with the state, and find ways to turn underutilized property into affordable housing for the city's residents. So that's broad strokes, and happy to take any questions.
I want to thank you, Matt, for the work you're doing. More recently, thank you for the, you finally landed that last piece of property on Lonsdale Avenue for the high school. You worked hard to, you finally solved that. Yeah, we're probably getting them out on time, so thank you. Anyone?
Yes. Matt, thank you so much. Besides the great job you've been doing in the city, I would like to ask you a question, because I mean, in your budget here, which is $243,000, right? In legal. I don't see that you are costing any money to the city, like no dental, no insurance, no anything, but I also don't see your salary here in this budget. I'd like to see if it's included in other professional service or whatever. What's that?
It's really in the book, I believe. All the salaries are really.
No, but it's in his
Yeah.
budget here, his
Broken
budget,
broken
his
down.
asking question.
Salaries.
Yeah, Mr. Councilman, that's a good question. If you see under my budget, let me make sure I'm in the right section here. Yeah, total personnel. Under fiscal year 23 actuals, you see numbers there. That's because Lisa Diaz used to be part of our legal budget, and then when she got promoted to deputy director of human resources, she got moved to the HR budget. So which is why last year and this year there's no salary, no healthcare, because all the lawyers for the city are not employees. We don't collect healthcare or pensions. We bill monthly, and that's in the other professional services line item. And I can tell you exactly what is composed of that. That includes myself, includes our housing prosecutor, our criminal prosecutor, and our lead poisoning prevention coordinator, who's Heidi Silveria. And then that's the other professional services line. The nuisance task force line is Alma Ankara. That's our attorney who works for both the nuisance task force and domestic violence task force. She actually graduated law school, passed the bar exam. We're just waiting for her to get sworn in, so very excited about that. But she graduated from Roger Williams this past Friday night. And then legal contingencies is at $50K. And this is, Mr. President pointed out, has been the line item that's dealt with things like international meat market, site acquisition, negotiations with our labor unions. You're gonna be having before you tentative agreement with our Council 94 city workers. It also includes things such as appraisals for properties that have gone through the receivership process, like ones I pointed out earlier, depositions, grievances, arbitrations, and things such as that.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Council.
everything that you've been doing for the city, which is great things, and the question was supposed to be asked. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda, under item 6, is schedule of bills, hearings, and consideration. Under item 1, a resolution in support of House Bill 8047 and Senate Bill 2864 to provide $4 million for out-of-school time learning, introduced by Councilperson Diana.
She spoke to me, I found you positive, really. I don't know much about it, it was introduced by Tatiana. Anyway, you have a little bit to say, you can go ahead on I'm sure it's positive, it's being introduced, both in the House and the Senate. I assume that Josh is behind it, Jonathan, so.
Thank you. Councilman.
Yes.
If it's your pleasure, I'd be happy to summarize it for the council.
Please, back in.
So this is a resolution in support of legislation pending before the General Assembly that will provide $4 million annually to create out-of-school time learning for children who don't have access to summer or after-school programs. It's being advocated for by the Rhode Island After School Network, and the funds would be administered by the Rhode Island Foundation.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Motion passes 6-0. Next item under item 2 is a resolution in support of House Bill 7036 and Senate Bill 2321 to create new categorical funding for civic education, introduced by Councilperson Ferry.
Yes, from what I gather, the bill that's going into the House and Senate will reintroduce civics to the classroom. I mean, civics goes way back, which is, covers everything from local to national politics. I think it's a good thing. I don't know where or when civics was ever taken out of the schools. I remember we had that in grammar school. I think it's a good thing. If you have any information on those bills also.
Got some major traffic going on behind my ear.
Yeah.
Did you want me to summarize that one?
Yeah, civics is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is legislation,
Positive.
that I believe 2 years ago, there was legislation that passed that required all high school students to get at least half of a credit in civics by the time they graduated high school. And this would further strengthen that by requiring funding for those types of programs and put it into the state education formula.
It's a positive. I remember civics in grammar school, taught by the great nuns, our sister. Anyway, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
We have to make a motion. We need a motion.
Make a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, under item 3, is amendment to the Central Falls zoning ordinance, creating the new Osram mixed-use special overlay district. First reading. Request. We have the planning director here.
I believe Jim is there, yes. Yeah, right. Thank you.
President and members of the council. Just for the record, I'm Jim Vandermillen, Planning Director for the City of Central Falls. So I am here to provide some background as well as to present the Planning Department's recommendation and answer any questions that you may have on the proposed ordinance to amend the zoning, the proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance that was introduced at the City Council on April 22nd. Just a little bit of background in the process, explanation of the process. State law requires that the planning board study any proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance and to look at what's being proposed and to present their findings on the study in terms of consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, as well as consistency with the intent of the zoning ordinance. So the planning board met on April 24th. They did study based on some analysis of the planning department at the time. They had discussion, and they did present their report on their findings to you. That's included in your materials. Separate from that, I, as a planning director, put together a recommendation to you that's also included in your materials, recommending that the zoning ordinance be approved as introduced. Essentially, the reason I'm offering that recommendation, again, having done the analysis, have found that the proposed changes to the ordinance, and this has to do, just to back up a little bit, there's a specific geography. This is what's known as an overlay district. So it's a very specific geography that's bounded by Division Street on the north, the railroad tracks on the east, Roosevelt Ave on the south, and Broad Street on the west. And that encompasses the old Osram facility, the old Hasbro facility, and some other properties that fall within that boundary. Currently, most of that district is in an M2 manufacturing district. But there's a special overlay already in place there that allows for a mix of uses in cases where it's difficult to revitalize an old manufacturing facility, an old mill building. The special overlay district enables that to happen. It allows for a mix of uses as long as it's part of an overall plan for the redevelopment of that area. Now you recall that last fall there was an ordinance that restricted the use of self-storage in the city. The proposed special overlay district for the geography that I described would allow for the development of an operation of self-storage facilities within that area only in a way to further promote redevelopment of that area. As you know, and you see every time you go by there, there's activity, but the entire site, most of the site is still sitting undeveloped. In order for that development to be more economically feasible, it was felt that allowing for a greater mix of uses, including self-storage in limited ways, would enable and make it more economically feasible for a mix of uses to be developed. And the primary goal that the city has within this area is to see that housing become a major part of that development. Housing, we'd also like to see, given its location, some ground level commercial space, which would be consistent and appropriate for Broad Street in that area. So we feel that the proposed ordinance would enable housing to be developed on the site. It would also allow for a greater mix of commercial activity on the site. As introduced, the proposed ordinance would limit self-storage to be within existing buildings, not to develop on the undeveloped land, so that the appearance would very much be the same, if not improved. You've already seen that there have been improvements to the buildings at the old Osram facility. They've improved the facade. Additional site work is going on. So based on that analysis and really the overall goal of consistent with the mayor's goals is to really provide an opportunity to develop more housing on the site. And this
would provide us with that opportunity. That would answer any questions.
I did a lot of work. I scanned through it, and I think the key word you just said, restricted to only the existing business. So therefore, because I had some concerns because we did pass the last ordinance, basically outlawing such storage facilities in the city. And I looked, and the key words you used were existing and only restricted. Anyone else?
Yes, I just have a question for you, because I mean, it sounds great, like, we develop that and have business and storage and housing there. But the only question that I have now is, in the investigation you have done, and then how is the area in terms of contamination?
So, no, it's a very good question. In fact, we just received the results of a consultant's environmental assessment, and there has been extensive work that was a requirement from the previous owner to clean up the site. So prior to any demolition of any of the buildings, there had to be an in-depth analysis and study of what was in the buildings, asbestos, lead paint, and so on, and also what's in the ground. So you'll notice that on the north side of Hunt Street, looks like a big parking lot right now. It wasn't developed as a parking lot. That was part of a DEM-approved environmental remediation plan. So a layer of soil had been removed, and the asphalt that's on top of that was referred to as a cap. So the combination of the clean soil and the cap essentially protects anybody from being exposed to anything that may still be on site. Similarly than with other parts of the site. And so, depending on any specific development plan that might go forward, that work could only be done if it complies with restrictions that are being put in place. So it's known what's there. Further environmental investigation would need to be done depending on the type of development that would be happening there.
Okay, thank you so much. Great.
And Mr. Clerk, Mr. Solicitor, I do have some documents just to enter into the record, and they're materials that were provided to the council, and that would be the planning department's recommendation, the planning board's report on their findings and recommendations, a copy of the public notice that we were required to publish and to mail to abutters, as well as a copy of the abutters notice.
Any further questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Pizzuto and Raphael. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Kazarian,
Yes.
Councilperson Lavalle,
Yes.
Councilperson Peguero,
Yes.
Councilperson Solano,
Yes,
Councilperson Rosado Martinez,
Yes.
Councilperson Ferry.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
You said adjourn. Adjourn. It's like 6:05.